The story tonight, the Millennial Sheriff. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. Close your eyes right now. Now I want you to go with me this evening to a special place that is far away. Come with me, fly with me across the ocean, that you see yourself leaving the ground and flying through the sky. Do you see the ocean waves now? We're flying across the ocean. We're still far out at sea, but we are fast approaching the shoreline. Now open your eyes. Before you, you see what appears to be a wall so high that you can't see the top of it. It's a wall, yet it has a mystifying quality of translucency. That is, you can see through it. You look both ways, left and right. There seems to be no end to this wall. This is not just a wall, but the wall to a city, a great city. The time is in the future. The place, the new earth. Enter with me through the gate into the great city called the New Jerusalem. Its span reaches from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf and all of what was once known as Arabian Desert. The city was 1,500 miles long and 1,500 miles wide. The city has many, many layers, yet there was light everywhere and unsurpassed beauty. It's like a giant greenhouse with light streaming in through translucent levels. Each level is 1 mile thick, so that each has its own bit of blue sky. There are 12 gates to the city, 3 on each of its multicolored gemstone sides that allows a fresh, cool breeze to flow through it. Every kind of plant, animal, bird, and fish imaginable flourishes in this dreamy place. This was the Eden, the garden of God. Thousands of years ago, our father Abraham romped in this very place. Sin had turned the garden into a dry, barren wasteland. Now it was full of life, just as it once was. As we continue through this place, we see on the ground, shimmering in the light, a walkway that is so clean and so smooth. Not the slightest bump or dip mars this footpath. It's not made of asphalt, nor is it made of concrete. It is made of a yellow substance that you can almost see through. It is made of pure gold. Some children are playing off to the side. One of them throws some stones in the air toward the road. It's going to break it. No, it didn't break. There's not even a scratch on this roadway. The road is so hard and so dense that nothing can disturb it. Do you want to walk on it? Of course. Let's walk on it now. Now we are leaving the wooded area, the fields and the grass. As we continue on our quest, we begin to see beautiful buildings, homes, and structures. There are so many people. They are all happy. With smiles on their faces, we hear many greetings as we go by. Hello, welcome to the city. Greetings. As we get closer to the center of the city, we see a building that stands out from all the rest. It is not the largest building in this city, yet it is so exquisitely ornate. This is Jesus' place. He is the King of the entire world. He has kings that answer to him. He is the King of Kings, and this is his throne room. It is a very busy place. Many, many people are coming and going. Many kings are waiting in the courtyard to appear before Jesus. As they wait, they are dazzled by the beauty of the building and its contents. There are plants, potted plants, hanging baskets of flowers, and a stream is flowing from the throne of God. Water falls down over many ledges. Outside, the stream turns into a river. On the side of the river is an abundance of life. It had been 42 years since Christ had returned to rule the earth. It wasn't just the New Jerusalem that was beautiful. The whole earth was full of the beauty of the Lord. Every nation and every city of the world was under his control. No more did people go hungry. No more was there a lack. No more threat of violence, war, or natural disasters. No more devastating earthquakes, tornadoes, or hurricanes. All was peaceful. No more pollution. No more traffic jams. Mankind was able to see how wonderful the world could have been like if man had only listened to and obeyed God. In just 42 years, the population of the world went from a dwindling 2 billion to a whopping 12 billion and would continue to grow exponentially as people lived longer, had more childbearing years, all abortion was abolished, and there were no limits on how many children you could have. All those who had survived through the time known as the Great Tribulation were on the earth. Some who believed on Christ during this Great Tribulation had not yet received a new glorified body, as those who went up in the rapture. Then there were others who had not received Christ as their Savior, who had not died in the tribulation. These all went into the millennial era in a natural body. Then there were those who were born during the Great Tribulation. They had not yet come to the age of accountability and had not come to a saving knowledge of Christ. These also entered into the new millennium. Those who were saved before the rapture had a new body, one that was without sin and that could not be destroyed, could not be hurt or die. These reigned and ruled along with Christ on the earth. A few were given entire nations to rule. Some were given many cities. Some were mayor of a city. Others were officers. Others were officials. Some were judges. Some were educators, teachers for the masses of people. Those who did not serve Christ faithfully, before rapture, were given less important jobs. Those who served Christ faithfully were given more responsibility. Tonight's story is about a particular job, a necessary job, one that did require great responsibility, the job called sheriff. This is the Millennial Sheriff. Ooh, 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 ooh. Wah, wah, wah. You would think that with Christ's glorious reign, no hunger, no disease, no war, no terrorist, no disasters, no pollution, no energy crisis, all is beautiful, efficient, all is very good. You would think that everyone would worship and praise and love and follow Christ closely, and that there would be no sin. But most of the world was made up of people that came from those who came out of the Great Tribulation in an earthly body with a sin nature passed down from Adam. So there was still sin in this world, but it was not flaunted as it was BR, before rapture. Now, Christ ruled with a rod of iron, and sin, as soon as it was found, was dealt with immediately. Every week there were great evangelistic meetings in the new millennium all over the world where hundreds of thousands would come to a saving knowledge of Christ. Yet they were still in their natural bodies with a sinful nature, and they were not without sin. Satan was bound and chained in the bottomless pit. However, his cohorts, the demons, his imps, were not. Some were in the wilderness, some were in desert places roaming about. They would be around to entice mankind with evil once again. Christ ruled with a rod of iron. He laid out the law. The commandments were posted in every school, every town square, every public place. There was no one who could say they did not know what Christ's law was. Everyone was well aware, yet because of sinful natures of those who were in natural bodies, there was still sin in this world. Sometimes it would flare up in rebellious displays. Because of this, there was a need for law enforcement. Chaz was in the city of New Jerusalem, about to enter Christ's throne room. He was a burb, before rapture believer, in a glorified body. He was so excited to appear before the Lord Jesus who had summoned him. I wonder what purpose the Lord has for me. Jesus smiled at him as he walked in before him. Chaz, I do have a special job for you to do. I want you to be a sheriff. Where, Lord? In the West, the Western Hemisphere. After the flaming fire upon the Lord's return, the Western Hemisphere was reduced to a heap of ashes. Rebuilding had begun immediately, and although habitable at this point, it was wild country. They called it the Wild, Wild West. That's the sound of spurs, in case you don't know. Chaz walked into the town. Ooh. The town that was once known as the capital of the most powerful nation, the United States of America. Before, there were monuments, statues, museums, a Capitol building, a White House. Now much smaller wooden buildings line the dusty, dirty streets. Ah! Wah, wah, wah. Some were happy to see him. We need you here, Chaz. Others stared straight-faced at him from a distance. They didn't show it on the outside, but already Chaz had an idea of what was on the inside of them and who to look out for. Flies are buzzing around as he walked into the general store. He looked down and saw on the counter a bottle of beer. He pulled something out of his coat's inner pocket. It was a short stick about 3 inches long, with a round thing on top with a wrapper on it. He unwrapped it. It was a lollipop. He stuck it in his mouth and stared off in a different direction with a squint in his eyes. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a man reach down to pick up the bottle of beer. He clenched down on the lollipop with his teeth. Put it down. What? I said, put it down. The man ignored him, continuing to pick up the bottle and make his way to pay for it. Chaz whipped around, and a small jolt of electricity came out of his fingertips, causing the man to drop the bottle. The bottle went crashing to the floor, breaking and scattering pieces of glass. The man was on the floor. Chaz went up to the store owner and said, "No more booze." "Oh, yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir." Then Chaz left. Chaz had done what so many Christians before the rapture wanted to be able to do, and now he had the power and the authority to be able to do it. Chaz walked out of the general store. There was a building across the street, painted red. It was a pretty little one-room schoolhouse. The bell clanged, and a bunch of children went in. Chaz quietly went in and sat down in the back and listened. There was just one teacher for all the children. The teacher was teaching a science class. One of the students raised her hand and asked, "Teacher, how did we get here?" The teacher paused hesitantly for a moment, then answered, "Some scientists believe that men evolved from monkeys." Chaz quickly rose to his feet. "Ma'am, you're not permitted to teach those lies. You'll have to come with me." He grabbed her by her wrist and pulled her out of the schoolhouse. She kicked and screamed as they went. "Why, you unscientific male chauvinist pig, you bigot, you Bible thumper, you blankety blank." "Ooh!" Chaz stopped abruptly and turned to her. "Now, if you're going to use language like that, we're going to have to wash your mouth out with soap." She shut her mouth and didn't say another word as he put her in jail. She would be tried soon by a judge for her crime. If she went through rehabilitation, she would be re-entered into society. Chaz went outside again and walked down the street. There were some people. He saw people wearing pants, some wearing dresses, some with very short hair, some with very long hair. But he couldn't tell if they were boys or girls, so he stopped and asked them, "Are you a boy or a girl?" One of them replied, "Don't call us he or she. You shall refer to us as they." "Okay, Zay, you're going to jail. It's a crime not to be distinguishable." And he put them in jail for a day. The girls that were bald, he made stay in till their hair grew, and then let them go. Chaz went out on the street again. Down at the end of the street was a hall with dancing girls. Chaz stood at the doorway, pulled out a lollipop, and stuck it in his mouth. When the owner came out, he stopped him. "Hey, you're out of business. It's illegal to do this. Shut down now." This one wasn't going to be as easy. The owner was making a lot of money from this business. "You're not gonna tell me what to do, you blankety blank burb. You don't know who you're dealing with. I'll get my men after you." And he yelled into the dance hall, "Come out, fellas, I've got something for you." 6 rough-looking men came out, picked up Chaz, and carried him to their truck. They all got in and went off down the road. They put Chaz's feet into wooden boxes and poured quick-setting cement in them. "We're gonna drop you off the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. Ha 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 ha." The route took them past the jail. As they went by the jailhouse, the men in the truck mysteriously disappeared. When the truck got to the end of the street, with no one driving it, it suddenly turned around and went back to the dance hall. The door to the truck opened, and a boot came out. Then the dance hall owner saw Chaz attached to it. You can join your pals now at the prison where I left them. Ooh, wah, wah, wah. Word had spread that there was a lawman now. Word spread what had occurred inside the general store, but some didn't believe it and thought the store owner was exaggerating. One day, Chaz went into a bookstore. There were some books there that were bad. There were swimsuit magazines. Chaz found books about false religions. There were books that were full of man's psychology. You can't have these books here. Says you, I don't care if you are a sheriff. This is my store. Take the books off the shelf. Now. I won't do it. Do it now. I won't. Do it. No! Whoosh! Fire came out of Chaz's mouth and incinerated the books on the book rack. All that was left was black and charred remains. The store owner was infuriated. He picked up a knife and ran toward Chaz, jabbing as he thrust himself forward into the sheriff. Chaz didn't even try to avoid him. He seemed to welcome the sharp blade, as if it were a toy to be played with. Nothing happened to him. The blade of the knife bounced off the lawman as if it were made of rubber. Chaz cuffed the man's wrist and took him off to jail. It wasn't just that town. There were many other towns and areas that needed enforcement. Chaz's job continued on along with other sheriffs who were appointed by the Lord to patrol the wild western hemisphere. Chaz became what's called a marshal. This meant he was one of the sheriffs that was over the whole nation. There were other born-again Christians who lived BR, before rapture, who were given this responsibility too. They were all marshals. One day, the marshals caught wind of a house where illegal drugs were being made. Before the rapture, there was what was called a war on drugs, but it was more of a farce. There were too many crooked police at that time who got paid by the drug lords to keep their mouths shut. Some even helped the drug lords. Now, in the new millennial reign of Christ, the police were not crooked anymore because they were saints in sinless bodies. Side by side, the marshals confidently came into town. They glanced at each other as they strode down the street in their long overcoats till they came to the end of a cul-de-sac. The house was run down looking. Shutters were missing from the windows. The grass is very high and looked like it hadn't been cut for weeks. The outside was very quiet, but inside was very busy, as some wicked men were making some very harmful and very addictive drugs. They were just getting finished and were packaging the substance that ruined so many lives in the past. It was a lucrative business. That is, it made a lot of money because the poor souls who indulged in this became hooked on it and would pay anything to get it. The people inside were putting the drugs into little baggies when the door quietly opened and the marshals quietly walked into the house with no weapons in their hands. They didn't bust in like police used to do. They didn't need to be cautious because they could not be killed. This is a drug not bust roundup. You're all coming with us. A couple men pulled out some guns from under a table and started shooting. They were automatic weapons. The drug makers used all their ammunition. When the smoke had cleared, a lot of lead lay at the feet of the marshals. Chaz shook his head at the drug makers. You silly men, you can't hurt us. For most crimes, people would be warned or put in jail for a short time. The protocol for dealing with crime was first to eliminate the sinful object or practice, then to deal with the sinner. Guns were never used by these new policemen since they could not be killed themselves. They didn't do sweep and clear a room anymore. Never did they break down any doors. Instead, just simply walk in. It was impossible to keep a door locked from these lawmen. They seemed to have magical powers to open locked doors. Under Christ's reign, lawmen did not need a written warrant to do a search. They were already warranted. Only when necessary would force be used. As long as people went along quietly, there would be no force. But if people rebelled, they may be taken to the middle of town and publicly whipped. Christ ruled the world with a rod of iron. His servants followed his orders and did his bidding. Under Christ's reign, sin was subdued. Christ's reign was one of peace and tranquility and beauty. There were no streets lined with bars, no convenience stores advertising beer, no billboards showing half-naked women, no women walking around in short shorts. It was considered indecent exposure for a woman to show her thighs. A woman would be given adequate clothing to cover herself immediately, and was required to do so. No one was seen smoking. Children out in public weren't allowed to sass their parents or grandparents. If the parent didn't paddle their child for this, a sheriff had the authority to do so. Most of the time, crime was met with instruction on righteous living and practices. However, if any did not willingly comply with the law, they would be punished. The punishment would always fit the crime and would never be cruel, unusual, or excessive. Some crimes were more serious than others and required a greater punishment than others. Chaz was told about a doctor who was killing babies before they were born. At one time it was called abortion. Now it was just called murder. Chaz walked into the doctor's office. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" the receptionist asked. "No." Chaz burst into his office. "Why, you vile, filthy, no-good baby killer." Chaz grabbed the doctor's wrist and said, "You're under arrest." And then he hauled him off to the courthouse. There was already a crowd when Chaz dragged the doc into the courtroom and plunked him down before the judge. Of course, the judge was a born-again believer appointed by Christ. "Know ye not that the saints shall judge the world?" On the witness stand, a woman with tears streaming down her cheeks testified, "I know it now. I shouldn't have done it. I killed my baby." "Can you identify the man who performed the abortion?" "He's sitting right there wearing a white coat." Dozens of other women testified the same that day. In Christ's reign, an overwhelming abundance of evidence was always brought to a trial, not just to convict the charged, but to bring conviction to the charged, to break them down to the point of admitting their guilt. Submit to the judge to enter these items as evidence. It was surgical instruments used to perform abortions found in the doctor's operating room. Even with the overwhelming evidence, by the end of the day, the defendant's final statement was shocking. "I did nothing wrong." The judge then gave his verdict. "I find this man guilty as charged and sentence him to be hanged by the neck until dead." The hanging gallows was outside the courthouse for all the public to see. It had been used many times already. As the doc was taken to the gallows, there were already 10 men in queer-looking clothes hanging from their nooses. They were homosexuals, transsexuals, and pedophiles that had been discovered. This was their punishment. Because sin was punished, a great fear came on all. They feared the Lord. The whole earth had a great fear of God. Men and women were careful about the words that came out of their mouths. Profanity was greatly diminished. Once, when a man was using very bad words, Chaz reached into his pocket. He pulled out a small box. He opened the top. He pulled out a bar of soap and stuck it in the man's mouth. "Take a bite of it," Chaz said. The man never used profanity again. Entertainment under Christ's reign was heavily screened for content. All movies, television, radio, books, magazines, and music. One time, Chaz was patrolling the streets when he heard some music someone found from many years ago. The sound went, "Imagine no heaven, no hell either." Chaz stopped and told the person, "You can't play that." And he took the music away and destroyed it. There was still much sin, but it was now subdued. It wasn't flaunted out in the open anymore. There were hardly any immodestly dressed people. There were ones who had evil hearts, but kept it to themselves. Their sin was in secret. People were very careful of what they said and did. 95% of sinful acts were snuffed out. Sin was pushed back. Even though there was still sin, it was hidden. Sodomites, homosexuals, stayed in their closets. None of them publicly marched for their so-called rights. There were tea rooms that were fronts for liquor parlors. Gambling was done in back rooms. There were no casinos. There was no lottery at the convenience store. There were no transgenders. Women wore dresses and men wore pants. Adultery and fornication were no longer laughing matters. No one joked about it. Comedians who did were fined for it. Close physical intimacy was reserved for a husband and wife. People didn't just live together anymore, they got married. Having a child out of wedlock was almost unheard of. On the outside, most everyone looked decent and moral. There was no work on the Sabbath, and everyone went to church on Sunday and worked for the Lord. Then they went home and enjoyed a delicious home-cooked meal at the dinner table. Everyone sat at the table that was set. It was a time of family coming together. Men and boys helped setting the tables and helped clean up afterwards. People worked hard, Monday through Friday. Under Christ's reign, there was no unemployment. If any would not work, he couldn't eat. In the stores and at work, there was no raucous music, only music that glorified God. There was no cussing at work. There were no off-color jokes or stories. Everyone put in a full 8-hour day, then went home and enjoyed the fruits of their labors. Under Christ's reign, there were no taxes, only a tithe of 10%. Everyone prospered. Everyone was able to purchase a nice home, transportation, and many other very nice and good quality personal belongings. Products were made to last. They weren't made of cheap plastic junk anymore that would break within a year. With greater incentive, more people became more ingenious and inventive. Great advances in manufacture of goods came into being, and the world was beautified. People worked hard Monday through Friday, and Saturday was a wonderful day of rest. As the years, decades, and centuries went by, a cry started to go up by many, "You can't legislate morality." Chaz's answer was, "It's already legislated. I'm an enforcer of it." The people are going to do it anyway. Not while I'm sheriff, they're not. Chaz continued to bring people into the courtrooms before the judges. Do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? The year was 323 NM, New Millennia. The population of the world had grown to a whopping 1 trillion and would continue to grow even more. Even though sin had been stamped out, there was much work to be done. It needed constant maintenance to keep it down, especially with the ever-increasing number of people. Chaz had appointed many deputies under him to help with the task. For hundreds of years, the world would be cleaned up of evil. However, through the centuries, as the technology advanced, people were able to hide their sin better. For this reason, they had to be checked. It was the year 666, the year of man. The Lord Jesus called on Chaz. Chaz, you've done a great job so far. We have rid the world of sin on the outside, but the thoughts of man's heart is still evil. I'm giving you a special ability to carry out my work. The ability to see through things. Chaz used this ability. He scanned the inside of packages, parcels, houses, anything that could conceal sinful devices. When Chaz found any illegal objects, literature, pictures, books, music, paraphernalia, anything that was vulgar, crude, off-colored, obscene, blasphemous, hateful, unclean, rebellious, idolatrous, or such like, he would confiscate it. Chaz could also, with his hands, quickly scan the data on an electronic device and determine if it was good or bad. So, nothing could be hid. The hands of sinners was cleansed for them, but their hearts were not purified. All that remained was dirty little hearts that imagined evil. You would think that with the greatness of Christ's kingdom, the extreme beauty of it, the excellent health and prosperity people enjoyed, the great excitement and interest that came with it, wonderful things that had never happened or been done in the entire history of the world until now under Christ's rule, you would think that all men and women would give themselves completely to Christ and make their hearts pure, but there were some who did not. Also, due to the great prosperity under Christ, came pride by sinful men who took credit for what had been accomplished. Also, some in their foolishness attributed their prosperity not to Christ, but to something else. As we begin to near the end of the millennium, idolatry begins to take hold again in the hearts of, so many. Some worship the factories where they worked. Some worship the ground they tilled. Some worship their heavy equipment, trucks, land movers, tractors. It was all very subtle. Sin's ugly head had been beaten down, but iniquity was coming up to take its place. Satanism was not flaunted, but still was present in some hearts. Satan himself at this time was chained in the pit. But his cohorts, fallen angels, devils, were secretly getting men and women to practice witchcraft. Something was brewing underneath that would come to the top. As Chaz walked down the streets, his spurs changed. The sun reflected against the star pinned to his chest. He stared into the eyes of those around him. Not only could he see through things, he was also given the ability to see into hearts. Most were good people, he could tell. But there were those who he could see had evil hearts. And even though all was well on the outside, it wasn't on the inside of them. And there was nothing that he could do about it. Fallen angels, demons, were well at work and would cause great havoc toward the end of the millennium. Someone else now would have to do something. A hero was now needed. Know ye not that we shall judge angels? Aren't angels God's ministers? Why would believers have to judge them, not God's angels? We will judge fallen angels. But that is another story. Don't miss the next story in the Millennial series.